People of Reddit who regularly consume alcohol, why do you do it? Recovering alcoholic here. People drink because it feels good, and it's fun. It's so fun, and it helps you loosen up. It makes you more outgoing, makes you lose inhibitions, and forget all the horrible shit that's happened to you. I am 2 years sober, but I met most of my friends through drinking, and I don't regret those days. I just regret how far I let it go. I feel in a good, or bad, position to answer this. Both my parents are alcoholics. I'm 28, and I've never had a single day in my life where they haven't drank. They're both in their 60s now, and I would bet a limb neither of them will make 80. Especially my dad, I'd be surprised if he makes 70 honestly. I grew up swearing vehemently that I would never be like my parents, and not drinking, but I am already a 28-year-old alcoholic. I'm fully functional but still nowhere near the person I would be without it. I could honestly write for hours about all the things that have led me to drink, including the serious influence from my family who strongly discourage, and cannot fathom not drinking. For me though personally, I have nothing else to do. If it gets to evening time, I get so bored, and cannot stand being in my own head that I need some kind of booze or stimulant to stop myself from literally going crazy. I don't have a partner or kids, etc. I know this sounds bizarre to the normal person, but I really struggle with coping with my own emotions because they feel really raw when I'm not drinking, and 6 hours after work I'm literally struggling. As soon as I have a drink, I don't feel any of that. I like being drunk more than I like being old, so I'm willing to trade fun for time. Alcohol is God's apology for making us self-aware. I drank purely to be able to sleep, because being self-aware wouldn't let me. My childhood was not pretty, and thankfully my brain did a fair job of just graying a lot of my memory out. Like, I have a few childhood memories, but even of those few of them are very clear, and the ones that are clear are the ones involving horrible shit. Ever been thrown into a wall or beaten with a couple feet of cut-off garden hose? Still, to this day, I'll sometimes be in a conversation with a sibling or a cousin, and they'll recount a memory from childhood, usually something at least slightly traumatic, and the memory of that event will come flooding back to me. I'll literally see myself in that memory, and all of a sudden have a crystal clear recollection of it. But until it was brought up with someone else, it's like it was lost in the fog of all those years I don't really care to remember well, because they were a swirling sewage of nearly all the types of abuse you could list, and all my anger about it, and all the fear underneath it all. I've always had trouble being able to sleep. When I was a kid it was because it wasn't safe. You went to bed in pain or at least fear of it. You just learned that sleep was one more thing that wasn't safe. Sure, you'd nod off at some point from sheer exhaustion, but when you literally wake up every time in a near panic of what's going to happen next, your brain and body can do an incredible job of learning to sleep a whole lot less. When I got to college I found that with enough alcohol in my system, I could pass out and achieve something similar to what normal people got when it comes to a full night's sleep. Of course, it wasn't healthy sleep, but it was literally the first time in my life I got anything like it. It was heaven. It was the opposite of sleep deprivation torture. In addition to being coached for what to say to the CPS officers when they came, and they came multiple times that I remember, I was also raised in an environment that basically drilled into me that it was not okay to not be okay. Telling anyone outside the family the truth of what was really going on in our home was a total fucking taboo. I wasn't allowed to have girlfriends until I was in college, and there was fuck all they could do about me dating at that point. I didn't know why I wasn't allowed to, and I was of course angry about that too, but once I finally got out of the mist of my family's dysfunction, I could look back at it, and see that anyone on the edge looking in, and close enough to see what was going on inside that mist, was a threat. But, getting that far took the better part of my lifetime. I sure wish I could have told someone the truth earlier in my life, and gotten help. Maybe some sleeping pills would have kept me from ever really enjoying drinking in the first place. In the end, I spent 2 decades using the booze to do what some medication, and therapy, and group work could have done, probably for a lot cheaper too. Learning to love myself despite my disease, and all the shit in my past, was another stepping out of the mist for me, but this one a mist I brought on myself. And I know now that I'm not okay, and it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to need help, get it, and be thankful for it. I generally sleep much better these days, but I sure wish I hadn't found the solution in alcohol first, and that it hadn't taken so long to find a better way to live. I bet there is a common theme here. Which one or many of these reasons? Mine are all of the above. I like the taste. I like the buzz. It punctuates a work day. It's the ceremony of fixing a drink. I'm a chemist. Alcohol is a solution. There's nothing more fun than catching up with old friends, downing beers for a couple hours, and having all the walls in your life fall down. There was a time in life I was a partier, and probably overconsumed. Wasn't as healthy, but I have great memories from then. Just have to be careful not to let it ruin the next day, and to be responsible. But I don't see any problem with alcohol if you can do that. I'll regularly have a beer after a long day to relax, and take the edge off. And I think that still fits in with a healthy lifestyle. Most of the time it's for the same reason I would drink a soda, coffee, tea, or basically anything besides water and milk. It tastes good. Sometimes, it's to chill myself out with a mild buzz. Sometimes the buzz can punctuate the change from a fuck, this day was brutal mental space into and now I'm letting the effect of a cocktail wash over me, and am in relaxation mode. Sometimes, it's to be social, even just to have something to hold while I chat with people, and or knowing that as they drink more, and get more animated or less inhibited, I'll be right there with them. On rare occasions, I just feel like getting a little drunk. Or, on even rare occasions, a lot drunk. I reason that I have never felt that I understand some people do, because I need a drink. I think it would make me worry if I ever really felt that way. I used to tell myself it was just because I genuinely liked the taste, which I do, but drinking myself into serious gastrointestinal issues 3 separate times forced me to take a step back, and reconsider why I'm consciously fucking up my organs. I've realized that drinking makes me feel closer to my deceased grandparents in a way I can't quite articulate. It's almost like a subconscious feeling of comfort. I'll elaborate. My grandma was always a heavy drinker, and when I came of age, her and I would go out and grab dinner/drinks together all the time. It was our new way of bonding, because my grandpa didn't leave the house often due to his health. Her favorite beer was Yuengling, but for the longest time it wasn't sold in their state, so when she knew I was coming to visit she would always call and tell me to make sure I brought a 12-pack along. It got to a point where that's all we drank together at the house instead of going out in order to stay home with my grandpa, who also loved Yuengling, but couldn't drink more than half a bottle because of his health/meds. My grandpa's death was fairly predictable because of his condition. It quickly became a matter of when, not if. One night he drank his half of a bottle with us while playing cards after dinner, and instead of finishing the rest once he was done like she usually would, my grandma preserved it by keeping it in the fridge as if she knew it was going to be his last one. My grandpa passed away a week later. The tradition my grandma and I had of drinking Yuengling, playing cards, and watching Star Wars carried on until she was diagnosed with dementia, and needed 24/7 care about 3 years later. Even when it got to a point that she didn't remember my name anymore, she still recognized me as her special friend that always drank the green bottles with her. When she passed away, and I went to stay in their house one last time before we sold it, I drank a Yuengling at the table right before I left, and when I went to put the bottle in the fridge to pay homage, I discovered my grandpa's old bottle was still there. It was the only thing left in the fridge too. Turns out my grandma could never get herself to throw it away. That was an extremely emotional moment for me. I know it might seem ridiculous to some, but that beer has a special place in my heart now. Even though I know there's irony in the fact that alcohol is what largely contributed to my grandma's dementia and death. So I guess in short, drinking Yuengling every day makes me feel like I'm right at home with them, and helps numb the pain of not being able to see 2 of the most important people in my life anymore. Fortunately, I've recently realized this isn't healthy at all, and I'm finding better ways to cope. It's easy to lose sight of how dangerous frequent alcohol consumption is, no matter how young or healthy you are. Disclaimer: this response is not sponsored by Yuengling. I used to drink a handle of whiskey every 3 days. When my wife gently told me I was drinking too much, I switched over to wine. Then I fell into the habit of drinking boxed wine. I'd kill off a box in 2 to 3 days. The big Franzia Merlot box. I searched deep, and made a change. I've been sober for almost 2 years now. Funny thing is, I don't really crave it all now. Every once in a while I'll crave it, but usually it seems unappealing. I like waking up sober, and remembering what I did the night before. I hope none of you are struggling the way I was.